God created this for man. Man created this for God. Community Christian Church, 1944 South Jackson Street, Frankfort, Indiana. Come, join us.
Before Tim left, he asked if any of the elders would like to give one of the messages on the 2 Sundays he was going to be gone, and I reluctantly said yes because, one, I don't mind speaking in front of people. Well, I don't mind speaking in front of students. Speaking in front of adults is a little different. But two, I get rather emotional whenever I get in front of you all. I don't think there's been a time up here that I've not cried. And so the over-under today is 3, okay? 3 times that I will cry. In fact, I read over the message with Mindy yesterday, and she stopped and looked at me. She said, are you sure you want to do this? You want to talk about this? And my answer was no. But Tim told me if I could give you 20 minutes, that'll be good. And I think 20 minutes might be all in tears, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I was going to actually adjust it and leave some things out this morning just because of me. But then I was having, if you didn't notice, I was having some bass issues this morning. First I plugged the amp into the top outlet, and it doesn't like the top outlet. It didn't work, so I had to plug it into the bottom outlet. And then the battery in the bass was dead, which I didn't find out till middle of the first song. And so then I had to change the battery, and then my strap fell off in the middle of a song. And so I don't know if someone just didn't want the bass played today, or they just didn't want me to speak today. But I kind of told me in my head as we were going on that we're gonna get through this, and we're gonna talk about everything. So. Let's see what happens. So last time I spoke in front of you was a little over a year ago, and I had just been diagnosed with herniated discs and L5-S1 herniated discs, and it was a big thing about, are we going to get surgery or are we not? And the neurosurgeon that I went to, he's like, you're too young, it'll take care of itself, you'll be okay, you'll have flare-ups every once in a while, but it'll be all right. And I'm like, okay, well, we can do this. And so I came in here and I talked to you about my new normal. I've got a new normal with herniated discs in my back, but it's going to be okay. And I thought that was like the worst I was going to be, and I was wrong. It got worse. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be like this, and I'd like have to work on straightening myself up, and that was whenever I got up in the morning off the couch because I couldn't sleep in the bed. I'd get like an hour of sleep in the bed, then I'd be on the couch, and I'd sleep an hour on the couch, then I'd be up for 2 hours, and I'd be an hour on the couch, and up for 2 hours. So I was getting about 4 hours of sleep a night. And it was not good at all. One morning, Macy Ray decided, she said, I'm going to come in, and she came into the living room in the morning, and she's like, Daddy, can I sit on your lap? And I'm like, we'll try it. And so we tried it. We shouldn't have. So as soon as she sat down, I got a tremendous amount of pain in my lower back and down my right leg. And I yelled out. Mindy came running in and got Macy Ray and took her out because she did not need to see this. I was on the floor, tears in my eyes, and it was words in my head that shouldn't have been there. But it was just excruciating. And I remember I prayed to God. I was like, God, just heal me. Let me figure out what I need to be doing. Do I need surgery? Do I not? Because at this point, I was like, something needed to be done. And so I had those moments where I was always just praying to God, now, heal me, take care of this. It's not fair to my kids. And it wasn't fair to Mindy. This wasn't even a scheduled one. So
It's okay.
Thanks. So I was just going through these emotions of, we had McClellan, and I couldn't do anything with him because I can barely do anything with him now. He weighs a lot. And so there were just these moments of, this isn't fair, let's get this taken care of. I went back to the neurosurgeon again. I'm like, look at this. What are we doing about this? And he's like, it'll take care of itself. I don't want to do surgery yet, and all this. And I'm like, when a neurosurgeon tells you he doesn't want to do surgery on you, that kind of means a lot, because that's kind of how they get paid. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen to you. I started going to a chiropractor, and doing physical therapy, and that seemed to help a lot. Of course, I was taking the maximum dosage of Tylenol and Aleve I could a day, which led to high blood pressure. I found out I had high blood pressure, and so we had to get on blood pressure medicine. On the meantime, with all that, my pulse was high. It was a mess. And I continued to wait. It's going to fix itself. It's going to fix itself. So, in August of last year, I went and got a steroid shot. The chiropractor, he's like, we need to try something. Let's try a steroid shot. Because I would be fine. I'd have my good days, and then I just get hammered, and I couldn't move for 3 or 4 days. And so we went and got a steroid shot, and it was much better. I was able to get some sleep, and it worked for about 4 weeks. And then I was kind of back to my usual. The pain wasn't as bad. It lingered. I was still on the Tylenol and everything, but there were moments, there were days where I was like, okay, I'm seeing some improvement, or I was just getting used to it, one or the other. And then around January of this year, I felt good enough where I was like, I'm going to take less medicine. I need to get off. I'm not one that likes to take medicine anyway, so I started trying to take less medicine. The pain hadn't been as bad. The sleep still wasn't coming. So I went down to lower doses, maybe just Tylenol in the morning, and just seeing how we went. And eventually I quit taking the blood pressure medicine because my blood pressure was so low that I took the blood pressure medicine. It was not good. So the doctor's like, let's take you off of that. And so I was off of that, and I was up to like 4 hours of sleep a night in the bed, and then like up in the morning. And so eventually I woke up one morning and I was still in the bed. And I was like, wow, this is new. So what the neurosurgeon told me was going to take some time was 15 months. So 15 months of that new normal. That was not fun at all. 15 months of me praying to God, God heal me, take care of this, let's do this, tell me what I need to do. And while I'm doing really well, I do still have my flare-ups. The last day of school, I was walking through the cafeteria, and I had this pinch in my lower back right here, and then just pain shot down both my legs, and I was like, okay, we're going to take it easy the rest of the day. And so I went home and I laid in the recliner for a couple hours before I got up. I felt fine, but I'm just like, I'm not pushing it. I'm listening to what my body's telling me. If something happens, I'm going to listen. And so I have those moments of I feel a lot better. I'm no longer on any medication unless it gets really bad. The weird thing is I get this stuff in my left hip now, and it's always been in the right. And I'm like, where did that come from? What is going on? So 15 months is where I was at. And I'm thankful for God's time in the healing process. I'm thankful for those 15 months. Which sounds weird because the pain was agonizing. It was not fun. If those of you that have had back issues, you can relate. But I'm glad I had those 15 months because God's timing has taught me a lot. I listened to what's going on. If it had been 6 months, I'm like, oh, it was only 6 months. And I probably wouldn't listen to what was going on. I'd probably be going back and doing the same things over and over again. It reminds me of, in the Bible, the 40 years in the desert, right? Why so long in the desert? Well, that's what they needed. It was like, oh, only 5 years in the desert? It was bad, but it wasn't that bad. But 40 years in the desert, that's a midlife crisis going on, right? So I'm thankful for those 15 months because that's evidently God saying that's what you needed. You needed to understand that if it would have been any less, I probably wouldn't have listened, right? And so I'm thankful for these times. So I want to talk about faith Sometimes having faith is not easy. In those 15 months, it's not easy having unending faith whenever you're facing problems, issues. Some days my faith was strong, usually on the good days. And others, it was in question. Laying on the floor in the family room because my daughter tried to sit on my lap. I was like, what was going on? So let's look at Hebrews chapter 11. It's faith in action. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. I love that verse. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings, and by faith, Abel still speaks even though he is dead. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went. And even though he did not know where he was going, by faith he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, and as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And by faith even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children, because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regarding to their future. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions concerning the burial of his bones. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasure of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who was invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the application of blood, so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. By faith the walls of Jericho fell, after the army had marched around them for 7 days. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. These are all great examples from the Bible about faith. And this was a long intro to lead us into what I want to talk about today. It's not all about my back. But as I prayed about this message that would come together, there were memories of the past year that kept sticking out to me. And I struggled with finding a common theme for them. I'm like, what am I going to talk about on Sunday? And like Tim told me 15 to 20 minutes. That should be easy for me. And all these stories kept coming to my head. And I'm like, but what do they have? There's nothing in common with those stories. I'm going to talk about something else. And so I think about something else. And those stories come popping back in my head. And so it's all right, God, what do these have in common? And so as I sat down, I started typing these stories out. I realized all these stories had faith in common. There are God moments in everything I want to talk to you about today. Now, getting up talking about stories in my life, blah, 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 doesn't seem very humble, and I don't like to sit and talk about myself a lot. But then I realized with these stories coming to my head, and if God's trying to tell me I need to share these, if we don't share our experiences with other people, if we don't share our God moments with other people, then what are we doing? Right? So I want to share with you some of these. Try to get through it. The first moment I want to share with you is pre-McClellan days, when we just had Macy Ray and life was good. Not that life isn't good now, it's just different. Macy Ray's always busy. McClellan's not so busy. He's very chill. He'll just sit and watch, but he's a copycat. And Macy Ray, sometimes she uses her power for evil. And I'm just, Macy Ray, don't tell your brother to do that. He'll do it, And so right now she's training him to be her dog. He's fetching, and it's fun. It is good. Love them both. But it is different with two kids. We were reluctant on having another kid because we had Macy Ray and everything. We were happy with Macy Ray, but God gave us McClellan, and we love him, and we weren't opposed to having another kid. We were just didn't know how Macy Ray was going to do because she was so used to the center of attention, as I think most parents have with an only child and then having another one. It's like, how's this going to work? So before we knew we were pregnant, Macy Ray was telling people that she was going to be a big sister. And we're like, no, you're not. Won't be a big sister. Mommy's got a baby in her belly. We're like, no, Mommy doesn't have a baby in her belly. So here she is telling Mickey Mouse that Mommy's got a baby in her belly. She's going to be a big sister. So, and everyone looks at us and we're like, we're telling people no, but actually at this moment, we were thinking, maybe. We don't know. So on our trip home from Disney World, we were driving home, we stopped in Chattanooga for a night, and Mindy's like, she's been talking about this a lot, let's figure it out. So she took a test, and Macy Ray was right. There was a baby in Mommy's belly. It's just weird because we hadn't talked about it at all in front of her. We haven't talked about maybe we need to have another kid or thinking about it, but all of a sudden she just, boom, I'm going to be a big sister. Now, she could have just been making that up. She has an extraordinary imagination. And if she ever tells you stories about her and her dog, we don't have a dog. Okay? So, except for McClellan, I guess. But somehow she knew. Somehow she knew before we knew that she was going to be a big sister. And to me, that's a God moment. Right? I don't know what she dreams at night, but maybe God told her. I don't know. But she knew before we knew. And so I'm going to listen to my little girl whenever she starts saying things, and I hope she, tells us she's going to college for free someday. I mean, I believe you. So, after McClellan was born, we had 2 ER visits. Not for McClellan, but for Mindy. And at the ER visits, no one could tell us what was wrong with her. She was having bad back pain and abdomen pain, and she couldn't keep anything down. And she was just sick. And Mindy she handles illnesses pretty well. And for her to be that sick, something was really going on. Macy Ray's birthday, we had her birthday party, and Mindy missed it. She was in bed. And that's a lot for her to just say, I can't do this. So after Macy Ray's birthday party, Mindy's mom was there at the house, and so I asked her if she could stay, and I took Mindy to the ER. And they couldn't find anything wrong. She was dehydrated, so they gave her a lot of fluids, but they're like, we don't know, and just hopefully it'll pass. That's basically what they said. And so, she had a C-section, so we're thinking, was there anything wrong with that? But everything appeared fine, and so it was just weird because she had a newborn baby to take care of, and she was breastfeeding, so she's trying to take care of that, take care of him. And I was going to show a picture, but I didn't, of a picture. I've got a picture of her in the ER, hooked up to an IV, looking terrible, breastfeeding McClellan. I mean, that's just how it was. She felt terrible, but she had to take care of him. And we tried bottles with him, and he wasn't having it. So there was nothing I could do. They ran tests on her gallbladder, her pancreas, everything appeared fine. And then one of the doctors on our last ER visit, he told us, he said, besides calling her weird because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, he told her, he's like, something tells me you're going to feel better and we're never going to know what this is. And I'm like, that's impossible, right? This is 2018, 17, whatever it was. I said, we got to know what it is. Of course, me being me, I do things I shouldn't do, and I get on the internet. Yeah. So, I asked the doctor, I'm like, well, could it be this? I don't even remember what I said. And he looked at me and he's like, calm down, Dr. Google. So we've got this. And that was what he said. And I needed to hear him say, this is going to go away and we're probably never going to know what was wrong. All right. And I think those words came from God, and it was just God saying, calm down, I got this, it's going to be okay. Because I'm a worrier. I know I shouldn't, but I am the biggest. I worry so much about everything. I'm just like, I'm trying to work on it. But especially those moments, I'm like, what's going on with my wife? Why is this is not supposed to happen? And so little God moments that I see after the fact, I look back, I'm like, okay, that's what that was. I want to talk about my father-in-law. I want to try to talk about my father-in-law. He had frontal temporal dementia. Front of his brain just wasn't acting right. They flew out to University of San Francisco to talk to the leading researcher in frontal temporal dementia, and they did a gene test on him. He had a gene mutation that causes illness. We're going to get through this. And we didn't know anything about it until it was too late. We didn't know anything about frontal temporal dementia. We never heard of it before. And so there were symptoms, but we just thought, whatever. It's kind of weird. And then we found out what it was. It's a gene mutation. All of his kids have a 50-50 chance of having it. They were willing to test. Mindy was out there, went out with them. They're willing to test her for it. We talked about it and decided not to because nothing you can do about it. Right? If you have it, then we know the symptoms now, so we know what to look for. We know that you might have it. But I woke up this morning, I was like, maybe I'll just talk about something else. I kind of want to talk about Mindy's faith real quick. This frontal temporal dementia, the way it works is, there was a special on 60 Minutes like 3 weeks ago, and they talked with the doctor out of San Francisco. It was on this frontal temporal dementia. The way it works is so weird because the last stage is you just quit eating. You just don't eat. Like you eat all the time, and then all of a sudden you just stop eating, and that's like one of the signs. And there was a moment in his illness where that happened, right? And Mindy had told me many times, she said, I have faith that God can cure my dad. I have faith that God can cure my dad if he wanted to. And I believe that. And he did. Because after those signs that he was on the way, that he was ending, something happened. We can't explain it. We don't know what happened. But he turned it around. And we got 2-3 more years with him. And those 2 or 3 years were amazing because he was in a nursing home. But we were able to go get him and take him out to eat. We were able to have the holidays with him. He was able to see McClellan. Now, before the disease, he was a man of faith. He knew his Bible. He would talk to you about God. He would do whatever he could for people, no matter what. He would travel. If church was south and there was someone to the north that needed a ride to church, he would go 30 minutes north and then drive an hour south just to get them to church. He was all about helping people and serving others. And when this disease hit, well, that changed. He wasn't so much into the Bible anymore. He had voices in his head, right? He's like, oh, the voice is telling me I need to, and we're like, don't listen to the voice, and you just knew whenever he had the voice, because he would just stop, and he would you could tell he was listening. We're like, so you'd have to redirect him and get him to focus again. But there were always these God moments in his illness. He could be listening to the voice and be off, and you could ask him a medical question. He was a doctor, and he would be back, and he could diagnose you and tell you what was wrong, and he's like, this is what you need to do. And he was back. He could focus on that. And there was this moment, and Mindy and I, we wished we were there. Her brother and mom had gone to visit, and her brother's family had gone to visit him. And they circled around to pray. And he used to lead the family in prayer at holidays and everything, but he hadn't been doing that. And so Mindy's brother began to pray, and after a little bit into the prayer, Mindy's dad just jumped in and just started praying, and they were crying because it was like old times. And that was a God moment. That was God saying, no matter what's going on up here, I got this. I'm going to shift directions a little bit because that was heavy. Luke chapter 8, verses 15 to 17. The little children and Jesus. Verse 15, people were also bringing babies to Jesus for him to place his hands on them. When the disciples saw this, they rebuked them. But Jesus called the children to him and said, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. I see this verse with my kids a lot. Things that I never understood pre-parent, I get as a parent. I feel like my walk as a parent has brought me closer to God because I view my parenting to my kids as how I view God to us. We are all his children. And so now whenever I tell her, I understand things a lot clearer now, I guess. Last night I was watching a documentary, try to explain that to Macy. She said, what is this show? It's a documentary. What's a documentary? It's educational, blah, blah, blah. But it was on the Great Wall of China. And she's like, what's it about? And I said, well, see that wall? That's the Great Wall of China. It's this big wall that China built. And she's like, that reminds me of Jericho. I said, what? She goes, Jericho, you know, the walls of Jericho that fell down. Those walls came down. I was like, you're right. And so she's really starting to understand her Bible stories, and she loves her Bible stories. I was going to bring her Bible that we read to her when she was little, but it's been used so much the pages are all over the place. But once she was flipping through her Bible, and she came across a picture that depicted God on the throne in heaven. But there was no picture of God. It was just like rays of light coming out of the center of the throne. And Macy's like, Daddy, what's this? I said, well, that's God on the throne. And she's like, but where's his body? Well, it's not there. It's like the light and everything. She said, well, how do we know what God looks like? If it's just... I said, well, it says in Genesis that he created man out of his image. And so that gives us an idea what God might look like. And she's like, oh, where's his heart? Well, he doesn't have one. And she looked at me, she goes, how can God love us if he doesn't have a heart? So that's a good question for Tim. And so I'm like, I wish I had answers, but I don't, and I tell her that. I'm like, I don't know, hon. I just have faith that this is what we're told, and so you just have faith that that's what happens. You're not going to get all the answers. And I think sometimes as adults, sidebar, I think we get caught up in this. We must have all the answers. We're not going to have all the answers, and I am perfectly comfortable with telling my daughter that I don't know, that we just have to have faith in what the Bible tells us. Another story, we were driving home from Walmart recently. It was whenever we had all those windstorms and wind advisories and everything. We're driving home, and she's like, Daddy, I hope Mommy, McClellan, and Granny are okay in this wind. I said, honey, I think they're okay. Do you think God and Jesus are okay? Pretty sure they got this one under control, hon. Well, how do you know? It's like, well, because they control the wind. So why don't they make it stop? I don't know. I don't know. But she's also begun to share her knowledge with her brother. We've caught her many times flipping through the Bible, telling him about stories of Jesus and everything. But she's most excited at Easter time. She loves Easter time because she gets to tell people that Jesus died on the cross. But it's okay because he's alive. He didn't stay dead. You know, she loves telling people that. And just so seeing her excitement in these stories, it just reminds me of this verse, right? Even though we don't have all the answers, that should not deter us from the excitement that we should have from learning more about Jesus, from loving Jesus, from seeking him. And that was reinforced on the day Mindy's dad passed away. Mindy's brother had called. They were over at the nursing home in Muncie, and he called and said, you should probably come. And so she called me at school. I left school, and I came home, and I was not going to let her drive in that condition to Muncie on her own. So we loaded up the kids, and we drove over to Muncie, and we pulled in the nursing home, and I stayed in the van with the kids, and she went in, and not long after we had gotten there, her other two siblings showed up, the last two of the six. And so it was a little while, and Mindy came out, and she said, you can go ahead home. I'll get a ride home with one of the siblings or with my mom or whatever. I said, okay. And so we started leaving, and we were probably 30 minutes out, and Macy had been asking me questions about, where's Mommy? Where's Mommy? Well, Mommy's with Papa. Well, why? So we talked about, she knew Papa had been sick. So we talked about it, and how Papa was getting ready to go to heaven. So she started asking all these questions. When? For how long? Why? That's a rough one. But she also, I want to know about Mom. Is Mommy going to be okay? And she didn't want Papa to die. Is Mommy going to be sad? Yeah, Mommy will be sad. Are you sad? Yeah. Well, I'm not going to be sad, Daddy. I'm not going to be sad. Okay. That's fine if you're not. It's up to you. That's just how you deal things. So not long after that, we got the phone call. Mindy called. And she said he had passed. And so I asked her if she wanted me to turn around. She said, no, well, we're still going to be here a while. And so we went ahead home, and I told Macy Ray. And she asked who was on the phone. I said, well, that was Mommy. And she said, what did Mommy want? I told her, I said, well, Papa's passed away. And she said, I'm all sad. I'm trying to hold it together and saying a prayer. And she says, so Papa's in heaven now? I said, yeah. She said, yay! And I thought, my 3-year-old's right. It's a yay. That reminds me of those verses. We can't ignore our little ones because sometimes they keep us grounded and they bring us back around to how we should really view things. Jesus said we need to receive the kingdom of God like a little child, and I think one reason he did is because sometimes the little child gives more than the grown adult. So let's finish reading Hebrews 11. Let's see what the remaining part of the chapter said about faith. Verse 32, what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released to that, so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith. Yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. So what? Sometimes even when we have faith, the result isn't the one we were searching for. Macy Ray wanted a sister. She really wanted a sister. We would ask her, Macy Ray, what will you think if Mommy has a boy? She's not. She's going to have a girl. I'm like, well, this is coming from the girl that knew you were pregnant, so maybe. I don't know. But what if it's a boy? It'll be a girl. But will you still love the baby if it's a boy? No, I want a girl. So Mindy and I a little stressed about this whole what if the baby comes out to be a boy. So McClellan arrived. We found out he was a boy, and we were excited for that. It was an anomaly in Mindy's side of the family. There is, biologically, there is one other boy. We have others through adoption. But Mindy's side of the family, they don't do boys. They don't, for some reason. There's lots of girls. So whenever we got the boy, Mindy's like, I don't know what to do with a boy. We went back to the room. Macy Ray asked if the baby was here. And we're like, yeah, it's a little boy. And she's like, I wanted a girl. Can I hold him? And that was it. That was her morning of not having a little sister. And she's never looked back since. She loves that little guy. So there are times that she wants to do things, and then when McClellan's done doing them, she doesn't want to do them. I'm like, I thought you wanted to do that. Well, McClellan's not doing it, so I don't want to do it anymore. It's like, okay. Her faith, though, was in having a sister, right? She had all her money on, I'm getting a sister. I'm going to have a sister. And when she didn't get it, what she had invested her faith in, she could have pouted and sulked and refused and not loved her brother, but she didn't, right? She loves him. She loves what was given to him. So even though her faith, she didn't get what her faith was hoping for, she still loves the result, right? Mindy's dad, he was not going to beat this disease. As the doctor in the 60 Minute video said, he said, it's a death sentence. Like once they find out you've got this, right now, there's just nothing they can do. There's some medicine to help, but there's not much they can do. Our faith gave us some years. We really do believe that. Our faith was able to give us some extra years with him. But through God's mercy and love, Mindy's dad did beat that disease. I think that's what we all need to focus on. That's why we have faith. We have faith in things that we have faith in God here on earth, and we may not receive what we think we should receive, but ultimately we'll receive the kingdom of heaven, which is what we all should seek to receive. Because it's been said many times that here on earth it's just material things, right? The results, I had faith that he would fix my back, but if he didn't fix my back, someday he would. And he will. But you always have to have the faith. And like I said, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes you question why. But what about you? I just wanted to give you some examples. I could go on and on, but where does your faith stand? Where are the God moments in the past 2 years in your life? Do you see the God moments? Do you look for the God moments? I am an English teacher, so I find metaphors in a lot of things. So I see a lot of God moments in my life. But they're there for you too. There are God moments. And even if you don't get the results you want here on earth, if your faith is in a healing, if your faith is in getting a better job or improving your economic status or in planting your crops sometime before August, then you have to have that faith, and hopefully it happens for you. But if it doesn't, that doesn't mean that God doesn't love you. He just has a bigger plan for you. Sometimes reading the Bible, I'm like, why can't we do that? Why? Because we get the after story, right? I often have to put myself in that person's shoes during that time. Like, it's easy for us to go back and read the story and be like, oh yeah, that's obvious God was working there. But during that time, in that moment, what kind of faith did David have to stand in front of that giant and throw that rock? He didn't know the after story of, oh, look at that, I'm gonna knock him down. He didn't know that. He had to have, that was some faith on what was going on in that story. And so sometimes we read the Bible and we're like, oh yeah, we know the ending story to this. But in the moment we don't, and that's kind of with us in our lives, right? We know the ending moment of our life in receiving heaven. But we don't know our story of how we get there until we're there. Does that make sense? I'm somewhere in here. I don't know. So even if you don't get the results you want here on earth, even if you can't find the God moments, even when you have faith, even if you're still trying to learn about Jesus and God, we all are. Please understand that. But I just urge you to continue to have faith. You'll get your reward in the end. During the big idea groups, I didn't write any questions down because I was, lazy, I guess. But I thought during big idea groups you could discuss this, and maybe you had moments of God moments that you want to share with others. And I feel like that's just one way we can praise God, is by sharing with Him the moments in our lives that He showed up in the good and in the bad. And so, thank you for your patience in me getting through, and I don't know why I do that, but it's just every time. And it's kind of embarrassing, but when God kind of wants you to talk about something, you got to do it. So let's go to prayer. God, just thank you for everything you've given us, and I just thank you for loving us. Thank you for the plan that you have for all of us. And just, Lord, just pray that you're able to let us see your moments in our lives. Let us see you working. Let us seek to find you in our lives. And Lord, I just pray that you encourage us whenever we get that urge to say something to someone or to do something for you, that we are able to, you just give us the ability to follow through and do that, no matter how comfortable or uncomfortable we are in doing it. I just pray that you continue to just lead us and guide us and just lead your church into becoming closer to you, and we strive to continue to seek you and be with you. And just thank you for loving us. Thank you for being there with us. And ask all this in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Community Christian Church, 1944 South Jackson Street, Frankfort, Indiana.